bright.
It is unexpectedly bright, but it's because
Today.
it's unexpectedly dark outside today.
Before I start yammering on, let me say this. This is all about effective habits of great communicators, right? We're going to give you 3 steps to enhance the communication with your spouse.
With your spouse?
Wow.
Your significant other? Let's start that again.
Spouse, significant other, kids, and clients. So it doesn't matter if you're married, if you're in a relationship, if you have kids or don't have kids, if you're an entrepreneur with clients. This is going to cover the entire gamut.
Yeah, because communication is communication, right?
It is.
I'm excited about this topic because I happen to love it. Oh, look, a deer!
Another one? There you are.
Everybody who wants to hear an update. Good morning, Brian, Michael, and Sandy Weinberg.
I'm going to give lots of updates on Deergate 2017. Operation Hug-A-Deer is in full effect, and I'm going to give some updates on that in like 2 minutes.
It's now moved up to Deergate.
Yes, but while we're doing that, I'm going to say good morning to Brian Sakowitz, who suggests we look a little orange today.
We do look a little orange
We're back
today.
in our old setting with the lights.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah, we decided...
By the way, I'm sorry. I'm wearing my non-reflective glasses.
Yeah.
Like these glasses don't have that refract thing over the lens.
Yeah.
So if you can't see my eyes, trust me, they're there. But the light hitting my glasses is good. It's not going to absorb like the other glasses. I have like 4 pairs of glasses. 3 of them have that shield thing over the lens where it absorbs the light, so it doesn't reflect back. These are the only one, and I just grabbed the wrong pair.
And we want him to keep them on because otherwise he can't read.
Right.
Good morning, Michelle Adams, Louise Mona Fournier, Zoe Morgan, Jennifer McCall, and Yoli. Good morning to all of you.
Yes, Michelle, I missed you too.
I wanted to say something.
Yes.
Ann Shivas. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. First of all,
I like Ann Shivas.
I love Ann Shivas.
She's awesome.
First of all, I am going to tell you why I'm wearing my gear.
Yes.
I might not wear it the whole time, but I'm going to tell you why.
We're both geared up.
We are both geared
I'm in
up.
my training stuff too.
Kelsey Wormsbecker, good morning,
Yes.
Caitlin and Dina.
Yes.
But I want to first do this, and I don't know if she's going to be joining us today or not, but we have got a crewmate who has got a birthday in the house. Maureen Blondin.
Really?
It is her birthday today.
Bonne fête!
Bonne fête,
À toi.
Maureen.
Bonne fête, à toi. Bonne fête, bonne fête, bonne fête à toi.
Mwah, happy birthday to Maureen.
I was French.
And if it happens to be anybody else's birthday and I didn't see, I apologize. You know, that's the only thing with me doing birthdays. I'm like, I'm going to miss somebody one day and I'm going to get in trouble for that.
Oh, I miss everybody all the time. I'm not as good as you like that. Anne thinks we're awesome too. Ditto.
You know, and
yeah, you know, can I say something? I was prepared to say something today, and Brian Bag of Brains beat me to it.
yeah.
Let me tell you something, crew. I'm not disappointed in you. There is a shared disappointment I feel today, okay? Potentially I'm disappointed in you. Potentially I'm disappointed in us.
Oh.
Because you know what's happened in the last couple of episodes?
What?
We've been low on shares.
Ooh.
We usually hover on average around 30 to 35 shares. Yesterday at the end of the show there was 17. And that reflects what I saw on Friday and Thursday of last week. So here's the thing. Maybe you're getting complacent. Maybe you're just not taking it as seriously as we need you to. Maybe we're not earning it as much as we need to. So we're going to up the ante today when we talk about highly effective communicators. What are the 3 patterns they have that make them epic at communication? How do you adopt those things in your life with your spouse, significant other, kids, and or clients? We're upping the ante.
We are upping the ante.
So let's get this share train going. Chew, motherfucking chew.
Choo choo.
Yes.
Everybody share it out. You know, can I...
Morning, Mona.
I want to say that I think that this topic in particular is so important, and so many people underscore the actual, like, first of all, the simplicity of communication, but the importance behind the rhetoric, because there's so much rhetoric to communicate. Oh, your communication is the most important thing. Blah 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 blah. Yes, but still nobody knows how to do it.
Sure.
So like these are 3 things that really and truly, you're going to hear them and you're going to be like, whoa, I didn't know that. I didn't even think about that, right?
Well, because we're not going to give you the rhetoric basic. Yeah. We're not going to say, well, most people don't formulate what you're going to say back to the person while you're still listening to what they're telling you. Be mindful and present in the moment. Yeah, we get it. We've heard it 1,000 times. But do you do it? Right? That's, I think, the point on rhetoric is that we all know the fortune cookie. We don't apply it.
Yeah.
So these are 3 things you've never heard before. We guarantee it. and we're going to position each one of them into our own mindset protocol. So we're going to come double whammy at you today. Just so you know the 3 things, okay? Listen without interpreting, terms of communication, and learn to listen. They might sound familiar. Trust us, they're not. We're going to go a very different direction with all of this.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say one more thing, because the reality is that whole, don't conclude what you're going to say, don't decide what you're going to say before the person's done talking. That actually isn't the problem.
Sure.
That's a symptom of the problem. That is the byproduct of something else that's going on.
Right, which we're going to get to. I just want to say, Brian Bag of Brains, double whammy, bitches.
Double
nice.
whammy, bitches.
Good morning, Lisa Arsenault and Michelle Lee. Love those 2 ladies.
Does anybody want to know why we're geared up?
Yes.
Who wants to know?
We have 5 minutes left in our pre-show, and we got to go over the gear up. Yeah. And we have to give you an update on Deergate 2017. Operation Hug a Deer. Where are we with that, and what's happened? There's been some big advancements.
There has been big advancements.
In the last 24 hours since we saw you yesterday.
Yeah.
Woo!
So I'm going to tell you why I'm geared up anyways, I've got my gear on. Brian's dressed to go to the gym. Yes. I'm fully clothed to go to the gym. I didn't even put on my Brian&Carrie in the morning gear today because I am so excited. It's a good, I want to just say a good day to Guima.
Yes.
Guima is the man who I was telling you about, I was talking back and forth with Andre yesterday.
Guima!
In Brazil. So Brazil, we're coming to see you.
The Pimenta, what's his Facebook thing?
Deco Pimenta.
Andre.
Andre
and
have
Tara.
to make it more confusing?
Right on, Guima. Pleasure, man. He's in Brazil.
Yes, we've been invited to Brazil to go visit.
Dude, Brazil all the way.
So we're going to go on a trip to Brazil with Tara and Andre. Anyways, I think we mentioned yesterday that our training has been very intense, and we were looking forward to test day today. We were supposed to be testing bench.
Bench only.
Oh, well, wait a second. No, that's the conclusion I made, that we were testing bench only. So we get our programming last night from our trainer, which is my favorite part of the day, telling us that really essentially what we're doing is a mock powerlifting meet today. So we are testing all 3 lifts, squat, deadlift, and bench.
Yes.
And once I managed to understand that without being afraid of it.
Get wrapped around it mentally.
I am so excited.
Yeah, do you guys want to come with us? We're going to live stream from the gym to watch some max testing day. Y'all want to be there? We want you to be there. So let us know if you want to be there. Also, good morning, Kimberly. Haven't seen you in a long time.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the crew. And if you're out there, just like Guima, and you haven't said hi yet, please say hi right now.
Yeah.
So let us know if you're here and you haven't said hi. And let us know if you want us to include you. If you want to join us on the live stream we're going to do at the gym today regarding testing our 3 big lifts.
And watch the page, because we're going to stream to the page today.
Are we?
So keep your eyes open on the page today.
Awesome. Yoli says awesome. Sandy says boom. Sandy's my European girlfriend, you know.
She is.
Okay, update. Deergate 2017.
Jeff Patton. I think I saw Jeff Patton. Jeff Patton, if you're in the house, I don't know why you haven't said hi yet.
Yeah.
Guima.
Thank
you for helping me with that one there, Guima, because I'm horrible with
Andre's been your friend since kindergarten.
Shut up.
That's awesome. He's a beautiful man. I really, really have a lot of love for Andre.
Yeah.
He's a beautiful, beautiful soul. Great energy. I could keep saying he's a beautiful man.
Both Tara and Andre.
They're wonderful people.
You guys who are watching, Brian told a story last week about when he did that photo shoot for Head Rush. Where he met Brie Condon, right? You were shooting.
Yes,
That's actually how we met Tara and Andre, who lived here.
We met Andre that day.
Yeah. And we've had some interesting little connections since then. That Tara did some work modeling for me when I was working for the fashion magazine.
Absolutely.
Just an interesting little nuance, but they're great people.
Right on. Hey, Brad Otten is here.
Good morning, Brad.
Squat, dead, bench, 3 major food groups. That's my boy. Well, let me go with a quick, because we're going to get started in 2 minutes. Today, again, we're talking about effective habits or highly effective habits, or the habits of highly effective communicators. We're going to phrase that any way you want it. Okay, now 3 things we're going to share with you about how to effectively become a better communicator with your spouse, significant other, kids, and or clients. Okay, so hold on to your seats. We get rolling in 2 minutes on that. That said, Deergate.
Somebody else made mention of the Steve thing.
What's Steve think?
You know how you said Steve tagged you in a post?
Yeah.
Cecily Casey was like, watch out for the deer.
Right, but Deergate! Operation Hug a Deer. Okay. Carrie Campbell.
Yes, Brian Grasso.
Starting 3 weeks ago until yesterday, how many deer did we have in our backyard every single day?
None.
No, starting 3 weeks ago.
Oh, 3 weeks ago we had 2.
2 deer.
Yeah.
Yesterday morning, how many deer did we have in our backyard?
We had 6 deer in our backyard.
Actually, no, we had 5.
Oh, I thought we had 6. I'm not playing this game very well.
It's okay. Yesterday morning we had 5 deer in our backyard.
We had 5.
Yesterday afternoon
we had 6?
6.
There you go. I knew it was 6.
So here's what's happening. The deer are talking. They're fucking talking, right? Now, I don't speak deerese yet, and maybe you guys can help. But there's the queen. She's the one who's in charge.
Yeah.
She's the biggest one, you can tell. She's the one who's most bold, and everyone follows her. She's the mom, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Now, every time I open this back door now, okay, listen, 3 weeks ago I opened the back door. I'd have apples in my hand, and as soon as I opened the door, she'd kind of walk away a little bit. I'd throw the apples out, then she'd come back and get them. Now, starting 2 days ago, when I opened that back door, she doesn't walk away anymore. She looks at me and does this.
She made a noise this morning too, actually.
So
I heard it.
I don't know what that means, but it could mean, hey, dude, thanks. Right on. It could mean, hey, everybody, the motherfucker's giving us apples again. Let's get over here. But they are talking because it went from 0 to 2 to 6. Now, Carrie Campbell.
Yes, Brian Grasso.
3 weeks ago, did your mom laugh at me and say, deer don't eat potatoes?
They didn't. She did, in fact, do that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, 2 weeks ago, did everyone on Brian and Carrie in the morning kind of have a chuckle about BG putting potatoes out for the deer to eat?
A little bit. Let's face it, guys.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah. Hey, Carrie.
Yes, Brian.
Yesterday, did I put out 8 potatoes?
You did.
Hey, Carrie.
Yes, Brian.
Yesterday, did those deer eat all 8 fucking potatoes?
I'm assuming so, Brian.
They did. You saw them.
But
yes.
I don't know if all the potatoes were eaten.
I counted. Gone.
They're gone.
So it went from Brian's a joke, BG's a city dweller, he doesn't know what he's talking fucking potatoes. What an idiot. To all 8 potatoes gone. Gone. And I want you to go into the archives to last week, or even the week before. Mm-hmm. It was the week before, when we did a fashion show.
Yeah.
And I said, your mom was like, well, they don't eat potatoes, Brian. And I'm like, how do you know? How do you know that not one deer is going to be, oh, fuck, potatoes, right on. And now 8 potatoes, gone.
I love it.
Deer Gate.
So,
Operation Hug a Deer, it's going to happen.
So can I just tell you?
Woo!
I know we're going to start
Tommy Gallant is here.
We're going to start in 1 second. Good morning, Clint Foray. Give Jude a big hug and snuggle for me.
Yes.
I just want to say that Brian's plan, so you all have to understand. Carrie, no. The first thing I want to say, sorry. I think I said this yesterday, but we bought an 5-pound bag of apples or something like that. And yesterday they were all gone. So then Brian infiltrated my blueberries.
But they like the blueberries too.
He didn't take all my blueberries.
I took like 6.
And now he's on to the potatoes. Pretty soon, I'm sure he's going to be throwing out like crackers. But his whole plan.
I want to make sure, like Sandy said, I want to make sure they have good macros though.
Yeah, good macros.
Good
you
healthy
have
food.
Good healthy
and also,
macros.
Cecily, next thing you know, you'll have bears on your deck. You know what? If I end up with bears on my deck, this operation's going to switch to Hug a Bear.
Hug a Bear.
And I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
So, I just want to make my final point.
Because we got to kick the show off. I love that Tommy Gallant is here.
Yeah, hi Tommy. Before we get out, we get on to communication. So I just want to tell you what Brian's master plan is. Because the master plan, believe it or not, is not to hug a deer. The master plan is to feed all the deer and get all the deer on our mountain in our backyard by the time hunting season comes around so no one can kill the deer.
I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm a hypocrite. I know I'm a hypocrite. I eat meat. And I buy organic meat, so at least it's a bit more humane, but I'm a hypocrite when I say this. My thing is, I have no problem with hunting. I have 0 problem with hunting. None. 0 zilch. Right? I have a problem with game hunting.
Yeah.
That's my biggest problem.
But
I have a problem with sport hunting.
Yeah.
I have a problem that says cover yourself in deer piss, put apples and carrots on the ground, sit in the trees and shoot the deer for fun. That's where I have a problem.
And we're all entitled to our opinions.
Right? And everyone else can disagree, and I have no problem with that. I might disagree with your shit, but there's where I have a... If you want to be a game hunter, wrestle the deer.
Wrestle the deer.
If you can choke it out and make it tap from an armbar, you get to own it.
There you go.
Anyways.
There you go.
Welcome to Brian and Carrie in the morning.
Good morning.
We're live, obviously, from Mount Tremblant, Quebec, where it's very overcast today, but it's a beautiful day. It's nice and warm.
It is.
And we are live 5 mornings a week, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern is when we start, but we go live at 9:50. That's when our pre-show is, and that's when you should come, because that's when all the fun happens. We talk about deer piss, Operation Hug-A-Bear and the fact that deer eat potatoes.
Did everybody hear that? We have Operation Hug-A-Bear now.
Yes, absolutely.
But
Today's topic is all about how to be an effective communicator, very specifically with your spouse, significant other, kids, and or clients. The 3 tools we're going to share with you today are going to help you become a better, more effective communicator with all those people in your life. So it doesn't really matter if you're an entrepreneur, you're a husband, you're a wife, you're a parent. This is going to help.
Yeah.
And can I say one more thing? It is not standard operating advice. This is stuff that's a little different.
Yeah.
That said, we got to kick the show off right. Where my crew at?
Crew.
Yes, we're going to earn it today, so give us a share right now if you could.
Absolutely.
Woo!
Good morning, Lisa McDonald and Tracy Don. So I want to start this.
Just so you know, Lisa McDonald and Sandy Weinberg are with me on this whole game hunting thing.
I see that. And even, Clint Fora, who I believe is a hunter, says not for fun, but for food.
Yeah, look, I think I would go hunting if I were to use the entire animal.
Yeah.
Happily.
Billy wants to know if these tools will work with deer and bears.
Billy, you might have missed the pre-show where we've gone from 0 deer to 2 deer to 6 deer, and now they're talking to us. Oh, son,
I love it.
It works.
Okay, so I want to start by actually framing this topic of conversation because I think that let me kind of just piece it all together because my thoughts just came to me as you were talking there.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to say is I'm a clinical counselor. Okay, so
right.
I have, not only have I been practiced in communication in my whole life in relationships, but I've been trained in communication, right? So it's kind of my go-to. It's kind of my thing. I think the art of communication is an absolutely beautiful and powerful thing. But one of the things that I've learned over the course of my life is that really and truly no amount of theory ever gets you anywhere until you're in the trenches.
Couldn't agree more.
When you are in the trenches and you all of a sudden have to learn how to communicate in an environment that you're not necessarily skilled at or comfortable in, the world changes. And for me, let me tell you, and when it comes to as a counselor, I think my communication skills have always and are bar none. They are exceptional.
Well, it's funny you stole my thunder, but please keep going.
But when you take my communication skills out of a client coach environment and you put me into a communication setting where I'm dealing with relationships, okay, like my very close intimate relationships. So husband, my mom, I would say would be one of them.
Sure.
7 years ago, I was a cluster fuck. I cannot even begin to tell you. And here I was sitting, right? I remember telling you, it's what I do for a living.
Yeah.
But yet I cannot communicate effectively in a relationship. So that's for me is a core of all of this.
Absolutely. First of all, let me say good morning to Casey Arnold. Haven't heard from you in a long time, love. Miss you a great deal. And also, crew, keep the questions coming. Keep the comments coming. No matter what we're saying, what we're talking about, we are here and interactive with you. So when this monitor stops, it makes my heart sad.
Yeah, we cry.
Right? So keep the comments and the communication coming with us. Now, I said you stole my thunder. And the reason that's true is because I was preparing in the shower today. I was formalizing my opening monologue, and that's what I was going to say.
I didn't even know.
No, really. I mean, for those of you who don't know us, and I mean this very sincerely, okay? It's not it's a funny thing. There is so much adoration that goes Carrie's way in our respective, what we do for a living. And quite frankly, I love that. I always joke, the people who work with us, they tend to love Carrie, and they tend to be good with me. And I want to say that properly because it's not a defaming thing. It's not that I'm saying I'm not adored. I'm not saying any of that. What I am saying is this: I'm a teacher, right? That's what I do. I create concept, or I take philosophy and I make it practical. That's my skill set. My skill set is to see the gap in the fortune cookie advice, or take the esoteric philosophy and distill it down to a practical approach that you can use every single day. Right. And then I teach that. I think I'm a world-class teacher. I think I am an extraordinary lecturer. I think that if you give me a stage and any speaker in the entire world who you want to match up against me, I come out as good or better. I think I'm an extraordinary presenter, lecturer, and teacher, but I'm not a counselor. And I learned that limit on myself a long time ago. I do not have the skill set, and a better way of phrasing it, I don't really want to adopt the skill set of being an extraordinary counselor. I love people. I love interactive communication. I want to help more than you could possibly imagine. My passion in life, when I wake up in the morning, my first thought is, how do I help more people today? I want to help, but I'm not an in-the-trenches counselor. By trade, by vocation, by experience, and by education, and by birth, Carrie Campbell is a counselor, a licensed counselor, and I have worked in every aspect you could possibly imagine, from high-end sport performance to corporate CEOs to large organizations like Nike, where I served as a consultant. I have never in my entire life seen anyone more equipped, more skilled, more innately gifted as Carrie, as it relates to counseling, which is why people love her. Because you try to put up walls, and she just ghosts her way through them. She knows where you're full of shit, either lying to her or lying to yourself, but she knows how to usurp that so beautifully with elegance that doesn't hurt you, doesn't make you feel scared. I just try to break your fucking wall down. I get a sledgehammer out and say, what the fuck are you talking about? How can you be so fucking delusional? That's why I'm not a great counselor, and that's why so much love goes that way, but that love is deserved. You've never known, worked with, or met anyone who understands human interaction, relationship, mindset, and heart from a practicality standpoint than this woman right here. Fact. Look at all these comments now. Yes.
Like Aaron Johnson says that we balance each other out well. And Lisa McDonald, do you think communication in our close relationships, like you said, with your mom or Brian, is much different than communication in any other situation? Depending on
different levels of feeling. Yes.
I want to be honest with you. I don't think that it has to do with the feelings attached. I think it has to do with the driver behind why communication is challenged in those levels. So for me, for example, we've talked about this on the show. My self-worth, my insecurities, my stories resided within my relationships. So for me, that was a difficult place to communicate, where I have seen the complete opposite. People who have an incredibly difficult time communicating in business because that's where their unconscious stories and negativity lie, right? So I think that that's what the foundation is, where it makes it difficult.
Which puts this in a perfect place to start distilling down these 3 steps we have for you. They're not really 3 steps, they're 3 tools.
Right.
Okay, and I'm actually going to start. Because I want to give you the mindset, sciencey reason behind all of this, and then let this extraordinary counselor teach you to do it practically, okay? So again, the 3 things, the 3 tools we're going to share with you today are listen without interpreting, terms of communication, and learn to listen. But they're not what you think. Okay, so number 1, listen without interpreting. Let me give you some scientific reality on that. It speaks to Lisa's question. It speaks to Carrie's comment about Lisa's question as well. In the unconscious mind, we have what's called a bias filter. Okay, so everything that is stimulus in our world that comes into us, be it watching the news, or my view on hunting, or interpersonal communication, or what we think about Donald Trump being elected to President of the United States, to what the economy is going to be doing over the next 3 years. It doesn't matter what we're talking about. Traffic, sitting in traffic. Every piece of stimulus that comes into us, it filters through this bias lens, which means what we are seeing, feeling, or hearing from the world into us is not absolute truth. It's our truth. It's the truth based on the bias in which we are receiving that data, okay? Case in point, okay? And it might be a really silly example, but it's one I can speak to so easily. Do I want there to be a recession worldwide? No, I don't. It hurts my heart to think about families and people losing jobs and money and going bankrupt and losing their homes. There's no part of me that is hoping for a recession. But as you know, because I've told you 1,000 times on these shows, I'm an avid investor. I love to invest in stocks and RSPs and real estate, etc. I'll be honest, when there's a recession, my money does more for me in my investments. The same amount of money I invest every month to buy this stock, I can buy way more stock when the stock price plummets. So I really don't stress recessions like a lot of people do. But you know what? I'm not a factory worker. I don't have the kind of job that is considered disposable income for people. I don't have a government job where I could get laid off. So if a recession comes, although I can tell you right now I don't want a recession to come, if it comes, I'm not so sure I'd notice or care. Because my bias filter is set to the fact, well, my job is pretty safe and secure, and my investments get to go up,
right.
Which means when the recession bounces, I'll make more money anyways. Like, that's bias filter. I don't sit in a paralyzed fear about looming recessions. It's a bad example maybe, but it's a great example to see how the forecast of a recession does not necessarily mean doom and gloom for everybody. Does that make sense? Give me a shout out to make sure I made sense of that for you, because I have 1,000 other examples I could give. The whole point I'm raising here, which is tool number 1, listen without interpreting, is you have to recognize you have a bias filter. When Carrie is talking to me, it's not her words or her tone of voice that I need to monitor. That's key, because my bias filter is interpreting what she's saying and how she's saying it. How she's saying it. How many times you got it? Well, I'm only getting defensive because you're accusing me of something.
Right.
And then Carrie's like, I'm not accusing you of anything.
Right.
How she's saying it is interpretive. It's not how she's saying it, it's how I perceive she's saying it. That is the first lesson of communication. You need to learn to increase your self-awareness to the point where you recognize that your own bias filter is responsible for what you're hearing and seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let me kind of just add to that from my words. I think that the important thing to recognize, and I think sometimes people get defensive about this point in particular, what I'm about to say, is you're interpreting all the time. Like you are. Like that's what our brains do, right? We receive information comes in, and our brains go to work figuring out what to do with it.
Right.
I mean, end of story. That's what happens, right? So you have to be wary of noticing that you are interpreting it and knowing that you are definitely going to interpret it through this bias filter until you become aware of that bias filter.
Well said.
Now, it doesn't mean that you're not still going to interpret that way, but you're going to be able to catch it before it turns to a reaction, okay? So let me give you an example of this.
Before you do,
go ahead.
Great comment. Caitlin Graham, I try to think about what the person is saying and the tone of their voice before jumping to conclusions. But hold on. That's what we're suggesting you don't do. Because if you're analyzing what they're saying and their tone of voice, you're doing so from your bias filter. So what you need to analyze is your bias filter.
Right.
Not what they're saying or how they're saying
Absolutely.
it. That's the point.
Yeah, so let me take this into an example. When Brian and I first got together, because as I've said right now, I was an absolute disaster when it came to communicating. I'll never forget when when we started to realize that. Brian was like aghast. He was like, I don't understand.
But
like,
you're a counselor.
You're a counselor. What's the problem here? Really and truly, I interpreted everything through my bias filter when it came to any conversation that Brian and I had.
Sure.
And what was that bias filter? Let me explain it to you. So we've talked about it before. When it came to Brian and I in the early years, quite simply, my language was, I'm not good enough for him.
Yeah.
That's it. And where that came from does not matter. It really doesn't matter. But that's what I became. Oh, and by the way, it wasn't anything Brian did. That's the reason I was that way. It was my own experiences. But my language was, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough for him, right? So anytime he was talking to me, I wasn't hearing what he was saying. My bias filter was interpreting what I thought he was saying to me, right? So we would be in the middle of having a conversation about business growth, about the ways that Brian thought that we needed to evolve ourselves in business and how could we ascend and what things we needed to change. And we would have this conversation where he'd be talking to me. Now, two things I could tell you I'd interpret right away. And we joke about it nowadays. I call it Brian's business voice, because Brian's business voice is much more harsh. When I say harsh, I mean firm. It's not mean, it's firm.
Yeah.
And I have a massive sensitive streak to that kind of tone, and I feel like I'm being attacked right away.
Yeah.
So I immediately interpret his tone of voice as I'm not good enough, I've done something wrong, and so I've put up this barricade already that I'm not letting his words come in. That's number one. Number two, so he's talking about what we need to do better in business, how we can evolve. All I'm hearing out of that, he could have spent 15 minutes talking about what he needs to do, but if he spent 2 minutes talking about where he saw some of my potential gaps that I could fill,
sure,
all I walk away from that is hearing, I'm doing this wrong.
Yep.
I need to fix it. I'm not good enough. End of story, right? So here he is trying to expand our life, but I'm taking it in through this I'm not good enough for Brian filter. And that what happens is I throw out defensiveness.
Sure.
I shut down, and then communication breaks down, right? So the point isn't, again, to never have that information come in through your bias filter. It's to catch it and make sure you're not reactive from it. Because that's where the problem breaks down in communication, is when we get reactive from it.
Brilliant. And
okay, I'm done.
No, brilliant. There have been some great comments. I want to address them. So Cecily talked about, is this akin to taking away ego or at least recognizing? Yes, that is the key, right?
Yeah.
So Cecily also pointed out she thinks of great responses 3 hours later.
Yeah.
That's because your ego is still perseverating on the issue, right? My free nature doesn't need to care. Right. My free nature does not need to, quote unquote, win an argument.
Right.
My free nature doesn't need to defend myself. Right? My ego does. So if I'm still perseverating or considering or thinking of responses 3 hours later, I'm an ego. And that's what we have been telling you. This is Mindset 101, guys. If your ego's involved, you're not in free nature.
Yeah.
So what does that mean practically, right? Think about the way we've been led or conditioned to misread this element of communication. And I'm going to go back to Caitlin Graham, who said it before, and it's no disrespect to her. She's a product of the same influences we've all had.
Yes.
Well, when I'm processing what someone's saying, I'm trying to read their tone of voice and their words. No, that's what the conventional wisdom is, but that is you trying to assess them.
Right.
What we are telling you is the only thing that works is stay aware of yourself. If you are looking or still working on retorts 3 hours later, Mona said this a few comments ago, that maybe her boss says something, then she starts asking her colleagues around her if they think she's being overreactive to her boss. That is your ego requiring validation. Right? That is the whole point of Mindset 101. We have to become aware of when our ego is at work. And when it is at work, we have to learn to get out of that pattern. Pattern interrupt. And I wrote something down. I think it was Lisa McDonald who said this a while back. I'm not going to try and scroll up, but not quite verbatim. But what she said was, in respect to, she analyzes everything so heavily. And she recognizes that's a challenge for her. So I wrote this down on that comment. Are you guys ready? Self-awareness is more important than analysis. Right? Analysis is ego. Analysis is, what's Carrie saying? What's her tone of voice? What's her body language? 3 hours later, oh, I should have said this. Why didn't I say that? That's all analysis, right? Self-awareness is simply scanning you. Recognizing you have a bias filter. Am I getting hot? Am I getting defensive?
Short of breath, shaky.
Right? Am I starting to get shaky? If so, if any of that is present, you're an ego. Breathe. Breathe and recognize you're an ego. That recognition of ego is a pattern interrupt.
Absolutely. And I just want to, I'm going to add to that, but I really quickly want to say, Lisa, great question. How do we reprogram that bias filter? I'm sorry for the brevity of this answer, but if you haven't picked up the Achieve the Goals You Set program that we kicked off a couple weeks ago, that's where you start.
100%.
So if you want to know more about that, just pop me a message.
Absolutely.
But I want to go back to the ego, the whole thing you said about ego, because I think one of the things that's so important to understand is communication does not break down in the actual interaction part. Communication breaks down with what's going on up here.
Right.
The only thing that breaks communication down is when one or both of us are in ego, we become defensive or we become reactive. So we either attack or we withdraw. End of story. That's where communication breaks down.
100%.
So
100%. I think you guys, by the way, I'm just going to qualify. Mona said, oh, wow, I'm a big ego. No, you're not. You have an ego. You are not your ego. Okay? When we recognize there is a distance, there is a separation between me and my ego, we gain power over it.
Absolutely.
Okay? So what you guys are going to find today is that these three skills are ascending. The base level is the whole listen without interpreting, become self-aware, not analytical, understand you have a bias filter. That's the basis, that's the bread and butter. The next tier up is terms of communication, okay? What does terms of communication mean? Well, what it means, if I were to give it a mindset slant, is accountability, okay? Now that we know that our job is not to analyze, or my job is not to analyze what Carrie's saying, how she's saying it, or to conclude why she's saying it that way, all of which are a product of my bias filter. Now I have to be accountable. I have to be accountable to raise that self-awareness and recognize the only thing I have control over is myself. If Carrie does get defensive, if she does get accusatory, maybe my ego is right, and she is those things. The only way for me to mitigate and mollify that situation is to remain calm.
Yeah.
It's to keep love and depth going into this communication pattern. That'll deflate her ego. I have to take accountability for that. But here's the real thing of what terms of communication means. Are you ready? You have to know how you need to communicate. And we should teach that in school. No, we really should. Okay, tell me if this sounds familiar. Teacher to your kid. Susie, look at me when I'm talking to you. Does that sound familiar? Because if Susie's not looking at you and making eye contact, our society has judged that to be a disrespectful gesture, in which time Susie is not paying attention.
Yeah.
Or, does Susie have sensory integration mechanical issues? Does Susie, in fact, need to focus elsewhere in order to not get overstimulated by everything? The way the teacher looks, the sound of her voice, the words coming out. Has Susie learned to auto-regulate herself so that she looks away on purpose, even instinctively, because she knows if she does that, she actually hears the words better? Terms of communication. How do you want to communicate and receive communication?
Right.
Have you ever even thought about that?
I bet you so many people haven't. You know, I'm going to comment on both of those points because the accountability point, I think, is crucial. You know, I am a crier.
Yes.
I have no problem admitting that. I used to be much more of a crier than I am now. But, you know, I was talking about, I'm painting a whole kind of picture of how it's developed for us.
Right.
You know, I talked about Brian's business voice.
Yeah.
No joke. Just him using business voice would cause me to cry.
Yeah.
Like I would break down into tears, right? And, you know, it would be really easy for me to say to him, you know what? When you talk to me like that, it makes me cry. Okay?
Yep.
And, well, I did many times tell him that.
7 years ago, yeah.
And, you know, I think that there's a cohesion between the two of us. Like, Brian's become aware of that I have a sensitivity to it. And, you know, you've modified yourself as well. But the one thing I started to realize was that really and truly, I'm not crying because he's using business voice.
Yep.
I'm crying because I'm interpreting that his business voice means that I'm a bad girl.
Right.
And I've done something wrong.
Right.
That's why I'm crying, right? So if I can continue to project the change onto him and tell him I need you to change, or I can actually change the one thing that I really do have control over, which is me. Yeah. And that's where accountability comes in. That's taking accountability. So I learned how to navigate that, right? Now, that bleeds into the next point that you made, which is the whole, like, how do you communicate? Brian and I are very different communicators when it comes to the actual physicality of communicating. Brian cannot look at me while I'm talking for any period of time. Nope. He loses focus, right? So he has a little notebook every time.
This in fact, little notebook.
Every single time I'm talking to him, he has a notebook and he's doodling whatever he does, right? And he's listening to me. Now, through my interpretation, if I'm writing something down, there is no way I can hear what the other person's saying to me. So I automatically interpret that as Brian's not listening to me. He can't possibly be hearing me, right? So that loops back to the first one.
Sure.
But the only way to kind of find your groove with all of that together is to understand and express. You know what, babe? Here's the thing. If I'm not writing down, I'm not listening. I'm not hearing you.
I can't. It's too much stimulus
right?
for me.
And I want to hear you. So understand how you communicate best.
Yes.
So that you can make those adaptations.
Have you ever assessed that? You know, Cecily and Michelle Lee, when I said what I said about have you ever assessed the way you want to receive and, you know, produce communication, they both made the comment one after the other. They said, wow. And I'm interpreting that as that you've never ever thought of that. Most people haven't.
Right.
We get so screwed up by societal boundaries of what communication, for example, is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Think about that example of the teacher with your daughter, Susie.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't look someone in the eye, you're not a man. Yeah. Okay, well, my son, you know, he can't look you in the eye when you're talking to him because he's just like me. Yeah. He needs to auto-regulate the stimulus.
Yeah, and you know...
Right? And so, no, you go ahead, but I just want to say, we can't get lost in societal bullshit. And it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay? as much as we are the same, we're also fucking different.
Right.
And we all have different patterns and means and methodologies of how we make our way in this world. And we need to discover those ways in a self-discovery way and then be okay to be that.
Right.
Right? As long as we're communicating. I had to tell Carrie, look, I'm listening. As a matter of fact, the only way I'm able to listen is if I distract certain parts of me.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. So, okay. So my background, I just want to give this information in case you didn't know it. My background, my very early years as a counselor, I worked with children with special needs.
You know what? Hold on.
Yep.
The monitor, guys. The monitor is slowing down again.
Talk, ladies and gentlemen.
We miss you guys too much when you go away. Just so you know.
So you know what? I'm going to give you a question to ponder.
Yes.
Ponder how you receive communication best.
Nice.
And share it with us, okay? So my background is working with kids with special needs and primarily in the area of autism for the first 10 years of my career. One of the biggest areas that I worked in was actually in sensory regulation, auto-regulation, as Cecily just put it.
Right.
And I think it's so important to understand that we all have a sensory, we all auto-regulate. We all have a sensory system that we receive information, put information out in different ways, and there is not nearly enough focus put on understanding that, not only in a school system for kids, but for adults, right? So when we talk about this one particularly resonates with me because I think that we've placed so much emphasis on the appropriate social manners are to look somebody in the eye when you're talking.
Right.
Well, in North America. But if I'm not, I can't remember which.
China.
In China,
Yeah.
It's actually an insult if you look somebody in the eye.
Right.
Right? So rather than sticking our heels in the ground about what we think is right or wrong, why don't we find what is best?
Yeah.
What is best for you? But then don't make the mistake of just being that without expressing to the other person, you know what, this is what I need, and this is what I can give you in return, and you find a groove. And we have perfected our groove because of that.
You and I?
Yeah.
We're like a well-oiled machine in communication now. We both know when the other is an ego. We gently point it out. That changes everything. Yeah. I mean, we have perfected communication, you and I, in a ridiculous kind of way.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, leads us to number 3.
Numéro 3.
Okay, which is learn to listen. Okay, now, listen without interpreting is all about your bias filter. Right? It's all about not assessing and analyzing that person, but increasing self-awareness so that you understand when you're an ego and when your bias filter is at work. Number 2 is terms of communication, taking accountability to lessen your ego simply by being aware of the fact it's there and you're in it, but then also understanding that communication patterns are different for everybody. Understand yours as a primary objective. Discover how you want to be spoken to and how you want to speak. How do you communicate, okay? Which sounds a lot like it's bleeding into number 3, but there is a slight nuance, and I'm looking forward to explaining it. Number 3 is learn to listen, okay? And the mindset quantification to that is a concept we call sawubona, right? Which is a Zulu term. I've taught it forever, and it translates into English as I see you, okay? Now, it is marginally similar to number 2. But here's the distinct difference. Number 2 is all about you discovering yourself. Okay? You discovering yourself. How do you need to listen? How do you need to communicate? Okay? Now, learn to listen. The concept of sawubona is all about understanding you as it relates to interrelating with other people. Okay? You have to educate other people how you expect communication to go. Does that make sense? Yeah. That's what we've done for the past 7 years, right? I would say something, it would provoke Carrie's bias filter. She would go into ego. I would see that she was upset, off-guarded, crying. I would say, what the fuck? Like, I didn't do anything. What's wrong? Right. She'd get defensive, accuse me of something, vicious circle. She discovered herself first.
Right.
She learned to understand what her bias filter was. She increased self-awareness. She learned how she had to listen to me in order to not intensify her ego. Then, lastly, the third part, she learned to teach me what I needed to do in order to make our communication patterns perfect.
Right.
And that's the last step that nobody does.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's crazy that we don't teach finance, time management, or communication in school. How do you want to be treated?
Yep.
How do you want to be spoken to? Where are your boundaries of acceptable? How is this not more important than division.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? So anyways, I'll let you take it away, but the concept of sawabona, understand yourself. Stand in yourself. In full of self-efficacy and full of self-esteem, and say, look, this is not acceptable for me, but here's why.
Yeah, and I want to... So I'm going to kind of add on to that, but I'm actually going to go to a story that just happened yesterday, which I expressed to you.
Yeah.
Because for me, I really think that one of the things that we have to embrace is that this is a lifelong journey.
Right.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think it's absolutely remarkable that as human beings, we are ever evolving, which means we can forever peel off layers and find a deeper layer that we didn't recognize we had within us, right? So... and that's where I kind of want to round this out is like the whole point of, for me, is the sawabona process, the understanding yourself, the learning what you need is going to evolve as you evolve. Okay, so now we've already isolated the fact that I was a shit communicator with Brian way back when, like crap. And we've evolved, right? So I went through the understanding of my bias filter. I figured that out. I understood that. Now I know it. I shared it with Brian. So, together he was more cautious of how he spoke to me and what he brought to me.
I was more deliberate. I don't think cautious is the right term.
Deliberate. There you go. Because we are in a partnership and we recognize that evolving together means being considerate of one another's experiences. Then I took accountability for myself, and then I deepened the understanding of what I need and how I listen and how I communicate. And just yesterday, we were talking about something. We were leaving the house to go run an errand, and we were talking. I can't even remember what we were talking about, to be honest with you. At this point, that's how clearly insignificant it was.
I know what it was about, but
we were talking about something. And I recognized my communication pattern started going into defensiveness.
Yep.
And I want to say more than defensiveness, avoidance. I was kind of skirting the issue. I was kind of ho-humming around it, not really giving specific answers to what Brian was asking me. Now, because of my heightened level of awareness, I was well aware that the conversation wasn't flowing. It didn't feel good. I knew it. And I took accountability. I was like, okay, what am I doing? Right? And in that moment, I realized, and I was like, okay, I told Brian, I was like, whoa, stop the conversation. Because I said to Brian, I said, you know what I just realized? I know why I'm avoiding right now, and I know why I'm being defensive. Yeah. Because I really don't want to fucking talk about this topic right now. Yeah,
it wasn't like a stressful conversation. No. It just wasn't something you felt like talking about.
It wasn't energetically something I was inspired by at the moment. But for me, as someone who in the past, right, I'm not good enough for Brian, a people pleaser, to find that deeper layer was massive, right? Yes. And that's the point for me of sawabona, learn to listen. Keep the journey going.
Always.
Keep digging, keep understanding, because you get better at it as you keep going.
Absolutely. What about that, guys? You like those 3 lessons today? Communication for us is an art.
It is.
It's an art and a little bit of a science, but it really is an art. And it's something like when I think about the way most people live their lives, it unfortunately is akin to waking up, going to work, making some money, trying to pay for some stuff that makes you a little bit happy sometimes, then going to sleep and repeating. And we're working for both the weekend plus a 2-week vacation. And along the way, we're really hoping that nothing bad really happens. And I'm not being judgmental. I'm not even suggesting that's you. But I am saying it seems to me like that's the way so many people live their lives. And one of the things I'm most proud of and most happy about, most fulfilled by, is that learn to listen with interpreting, terms of communication, learn to listen, the concepts of sawabona, our 4 A's of mindset, all of these topics, all of these things, we don't make them up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Okay, we have spent years drinking green tea or espresso until 5 o'clock in the morning in our kitchen, talking about our respective experiences and education, and establishing these concepts that are so well developed and so easy to understand, and they honor our 2 respective specialties so well. I'm really proud of that, but more than that stuff, it's how we've chosen to live. Yeah. We placed our relationship above money. We placed our relationship with our kids above materialism.
Right.
We placed our own self-discovery above anything, right? So the last 7 years, what you hear every day on Brian and Carrie in the morning is a culmination of 7 years of growth, 7 years of learning, of discovering, of staying up till 5 o'clock in the morning, and the romance of that. Yeah. Once in a while, we'd switch the espresso or green tea for wine. And I just think to myself, do you remember sitting in that small little kitchen in Hillcrest there in downtown Montreal? It was tiny. And the window just happened to point the right direction. And we'd be engrossed in these conversations about the way Carrie communicates and her patterns and why she does this. And I'd be like, oh my God, I never thought of that. Like, babe, like, here's what I can do to switch that around. And that's how all these concepts happen while we're sipping on wine and the sun's coming up. Like the romance that we've had over the last 7 years on tasting life. And like, we've invested the harvest. You know, we invested in ourselves and our relationship and our kids. And I just feel so fulfilled by that. That was just like a little mic drop that I wanted to share.
I love that. I want to, I'm going to come back to Michelle Adams' question here because it's beautiful and I get this question all the time. What if your partner says they have never talked a lot? Is there a way to help them? Where do you start? How can you help them dig? And Jessica says, Chandra says, I like that question because her spouse is the same.
Sure.
So the first thing I want to say is, again, like, when we're in a relationship, a partnership with someone, I really think that we have to look at it as the team effect.
Yeah.
Right? So let's not make it all about him or all about her. It's always about us, right?
Great point.
So in this situation, Michelle, I'm going to give you some real practical steps, but the first thing I want to say is accountability.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, are you placing too much of an expectation on your spouse or your partner to communicate at the way that you do, as effectively as you do? Are you putting that expectation on them? Are you gauging how they communicate based on where you are as a communicator? So that's the first thing I want to say is accountability. The second thing I want to say is, so these are two practical things, and I always give people these as places to start. You start talking. Don't make them be the ones to start talking. There is nothing worse for someone, and I'm telling you right now, when Brian used to say to me, okay, start talking, I can't even begin to tell you how a blank wall used to come up. There was no thoughts that would come to my head. There is nothing worse than putting on someone on the spot who is not really used to talking and telling them, start talking, right? So you do the talking. You start talking. You start sharing your life, talking about your awarenesses, what you've understood about yourself, because let me tell you, more than you realize it, that will help them start to see themselves.
100%.
That's number one.
It's contagious.
The second one, and I just actually had this experience with one of my current coaching clients, where her partner is not a great communicator either, and I have them doing the one thing exercise, which you can catch on a video, or we'll come back to another day, where every day they have to share communication with each other, right? But we found out that he's a journalist. He's actually better at writing than he is at verbalizing. So I have them doing that exercise in a written format where he's actually able to express to her in a much easier way than through words. And then you evolve into spoken words. And then you evolve into communication. So remember to look at where you're starting and layer in the process from there. But those are two tidbits for you to consider.
And we talked about this regarding to kids. We've already talked about the fact that Chase, our 12-year-old, he can't look at us when we're talking to him, and we've learned to realize that is just him auto-regulating. Maya gets very defensive immediately. Now, I want you to think about that if you're a parent or a teacher or something like that. When a child gets defensive immediately, don't you automatically brandish them with the wand of they're being belligerent? They're being nasty. They're not taking responsibility.
They're not listening.
They're not listening. But you know what we've realized in Maya's case? Guilt overwhelms her. She feels so guilty so instantaneously that her automatic auto-regulation is to try to calm the situation by telling us she didn't do it the way we thought she did, or she didn't mean to, or she even sometimes borders into lying about absolving herself of responsibility, but it's not because she's a bad kid, and it's not because she's getting away with shit because we're too liberal. It's because the guilt inside of her is so overwhelming that she auto-regulates immediately to defending herself and the situation.
Exactly.
Now, I want you to think about that. You know, this whole, like, I'm so bored of this, like, nonsense in our society about liberalism somehow means namby-pamby weak. And in order to not be that, you have to be tough and tough love and be a man and stop being an ass and blah, blah, blah. Okay, like, there's a middle ground, and the middle ground is called understanding. It's called using your head, right? The last thing in the world I want my daughter growing up with is a predisposition to feel guilty if she hears something in her bias filter that seems as though she's been a bad girl. Why would I want my daughter, my 11-year-old little soul child, why would I want her growing up with a complex to feel guilt immediately upon being recognized for having done something wrong?
Right.
So all you tough love, hard-handed parents, use your fucking head. There is a depth to this that matters a lot more than what you think is discipline. It's not discipline. It's secondary, second-tiered abuse, right? So you want to give an 11-year-old girl the complex of guilt? Great. Then watch her grow up to live in an abusive relationship with her husband, because that's what's going to come. If her guilt is so extraordinary, she's going to become a people pleaser. And some manipulative asshole is going to take advantage of that. Now, I'd rather not spend the next 50 years of my life in jail for having to commit first-degree murder to the man who offended and hurt my daughter. I would. Probably a little happily, more happily than I should admit. But the point is, can't we help pattern correct that now?
Yeah.
By helping her understand communication and provide a safe place where she doesn't have to feel guilt. She doesn't have to lie. She doesn't have to defend because guilt isn't necessary. Isn't that what good communication should be?
Exactly. Boom!
That all makes sense to everybody.
Boom. I love that there's so many people who have commented that they have to watch this one over again.
Yes.
I dig that. You know what? Watch it over again and take the time to practice one at a time. Don't try and bite off all of them at once. You start with your bias filter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I hit a nerve, Lee, so I hope a good nerve.
Yeah.
I hope a good nerve. And by the way, my last comment is to, if you have clients, think about all the things we've talked about today. Are you listening well? Is your bias filter getting in the way of you interpreting? Do you know how many fitness professionals and counselors and psychologists I've worked with and heard over the years saying, I'm firing that client because she's a pain in the ass? Oh, well, what makes her a pain in the ass? Well, she's always just defending and not taking responsibility for not doing the work and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, at some point you could take some professional accountability and recognize maybe you're not communicating with her the way it needs to happen, or with him, right? So it doesn't matter if we're talking about your spouse, significant other, kids, or clients. All of this applies.
Yeah, I'm not even going to open the can of worms on the client communication. Well, let's do that one another day, because I think that one is so imperative, and I think it is so misguided. I will say this one point on that is that I think that when there are so many people who invest their time, their money, and their lives into their coaches, or insert whatever professional you want to insert, and communication becomes a huge factor in being destructive. Yeah. Absolutely destructive. So I'm just going to leave that there.
Love the comments. Chris Goldowski, one of my faves. I just got here for the boom. Very nice. Tanya, yes, you are so right. I'm always riddled with guilt. Shame, shame, shame. Listen, I can't relate because I don't feel guilt very easily. It's not something I've been born with, but I understand because I was married to someone who used to have a lot of guilt. Yeah. So I know the guilt and I know the shame very well. We should do a show exclusively on that.
Yeah.
Here's my final question, and it needs to be at least 10 people or more who reply. Would you like us to do a show on guilt and shame and how to elevate away from it? Would that be something you'd want to see? Because I don't know anybody in the world more qualified than this one.
From professionally and personally.
Professionally and practically, right? So I'm going to wait for those. Kristen says yes. Cecily, yes. Thank you, Lisa.
We have a lot of yeses coming in.
I can thank my German mother. Okay, lots and lots of yeses on that. Okay, well, maybe we'll hit up a guilt and shame episode either tomorrow or Thursday.
Yeah, sounds great.
What do you guys think about that? Sound good?
Exciting.
As always, you guys are lovely. Miss you already, but we're live streaming to our fan page, Brian&Carrie.
Yeah,
today,
in about an hour.
Going to the gym in about 10 minutes to do some max testing. So we'd love to see you and have you with us for that.
And a final shout out, Patrick Consing. Welcome to the show.
Yes, Patrick. And Emily. Don't recognize your name either. Mad love to the whole crew. See you all tomorrow. Woo!